Hi there, this is Matt at State of Flex, and happy Half-o-Ween, everybody. It is halfway to Halloween, and as such, every 6 months, either on Halloween Day or halfway to Halloween Day, I do a review for a different Halloween movie. You can go back and watch my reviews for Halloween and Halloween 2. This time I'm reviewing Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now this is one that's interesting in that this is the only non-Michael Myers Halloween movie, kind of, sort of, anyway. Halloween Ends still very much lives real in me. Anyway, I am interested to talk about this in that I historically despised this movie. I'd seen it twice before and I just could not stand it. I think even on a friend's YouTube channel from years ago, I gave this a big goose egg, a 0-star review. And it's one that I no longer stand by. I don't think this movie is by any means great. But I also don't think it's the worst of the franchise any longer. And I couldn't help but notice upon my rewatch that I was really enjoying a lot of aspects of the movie. I think it's a well-photographed movie. It is a movie that is rather intriguing. It may not necessarily be good, but it held me captivated enough throughout the entire film to want to get to that end point. The film has a pretty grand final shot, final scene really, that is evocative of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and a lot of great horrors from times past. But the feel that this movie left me with was disappointment. Now it could be that I was operating off the disappointment of my Halloween rewatch of Halloween 2, where a movie that I already didn't really like very much, I kind of sunk down into the bitter depths of how much I really hate that movie. And knowing that John Carpenter never wanted to make Halloween 2, he always wanted, once Halloween became a viable movie and he could make a franchise of it, and he wanted to make a franchise out of Halloween by doing an anthology that revisits Halloween with a different perspective every single year with a different style of horror, and this was the first presentation of that idea. I walked away from this movie disappointed that that isn't the trajectory that this franchise went down. Because I think that's far more interesting than any number of revisitations to Michael Myers ever could provide for us. Now, as I say, there are Halloween movies that I like much better than this movie that are coming down the pipeline. But I think that a lot of those movies are creatively bereft. The first Halloween is running and operating on creative juices that built an entire foundation for a whole genre of film that only had one or two other movies behind it to really rest upon. This is the movie that built the Scream rules, right? And Halloween 2 seemed like a cash grab of more of the night he came home. Well, it had to have been pretty close to midnight, so we're not operating on Halloween anymore. We're into like Friday the 13th Part 3D territories here. And it just like falls apart. The creative thing put into that is a riff on The Empire Strikes Back by making the villain and the main character familially connected. And I never bought it for a second in Halloween. It's cheap and it's emotionless and it's thoughtless, and it did more damage to that first movie than it did to help it. That said, we would get essentially what is a remake of Halloween with Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, with some interesting, compelling thoughts and stuff, and the whole Thorn trilogy has ideas that I think kind of ruminate a little bit with what was going on here with the dark magic-y Shamrock situation. And then the whole revisiting Laurie 20 years later, and then, revisiting Laurie maybe 40 years later, and doing a remake entirely from Michael's perspective. Like, these movies are all essentially a redistribution of the exact same movie, just with more intense kills and almost less thought. There are some that are better than others and some that have more thoughts than others. But what this was a movie that I've not seen the likes of before. It is creative. It may be low energy. It may have stretches where I'm sitting aghast watching the screen like, how did this happen? And then there are maybe stretches where I'm like, this is really well photographed. This is really creative. This is a really unique idea. This is a really haunting and horrifying moment. That's a lightsaber just blasting through that woman's face. What a compelling idea for the bad guy of your movie to do to children, and then having like snakes and stuff crawl out of it. Like, there are ideas in this, and those ideas manifest into something. Maybe it's not something great. It's certainly something that has a cult following, but it's new and it's an interesting idea. And I think if they hadn't done Halloween 2 at all, and they'd done this, we still probably would have seen the end of the Halloween franchise, and maybe then we would have had Halloween 2 more the night he came home. But I think this would have been fine for like movie 4 or 5. They should have done something a little more conventional for the anthology. You did a bare bones horror, a slasher film for Halloween and Halloween 2. Maybe not go so kind of whimsical with Season of the Witch. Maybe do something that's more of like a traditional ghost story, and that can be the build-in for your Halloween. I think this was just misguided in its placement of release. And they should have really already been actively making the 4th movie rather than seeing if this had turned a profit. Just to establish the whole idea of, we're coming at you every Halloween with a new horror story that's going to reshape Halloween for you every single year, or maybe every couple of years. But they should have really sold the idea by doing like 2 back-to-back. Not connected, completely disconnected. And then every once in a while, maybe then it's time to go back and see what these Shamrock guys are doing. Let's see what is happening with more from the night he came home. And then you could have built an interesting anthology. This is a movie that I watch and I admire in a weird way, because it delivers what could have been. And I feel like what could have been the Halloween franchise is probably ultimately better than the Halloween franchise we got. And that's saying something, because of the slasher genre, the big slasher icons, Michael Myers probably has more good movies than most of the other big bads. I think Ghostface doesn't necessarily count because there's always somebody different behind the mask. And it's always trying to say something about the film industry. But Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers has more movies than most of them, so maybe it's a skewed balance. But Leatherface, Pinhead, Chucky, I feel like Michael has a decent amount of the good ones. And even with that, I'd still prefer the whole anthology, because at least it's something wholly creative and wholly new, and delivers the option of giving a young filmmaker with creative energy and creative juice to reinvent a night of the year on a consistent basis. That is compelling to me, and I think that, like, it might be time for a Halloween anthology to come out. We can't do it with the Halloween brand, but I think this is time for a horror anthology to really hit theaters, because that would be something that I think would be good, and we just need to tie it to a really great original horror film. And just a horror film with just a vague enough title that you can just repurpose it for each subsequent movie, as this does with Halloween Season of the Witch. It's a movie that as I say, I admire. I found it intriguing, especially this time around, and I was shocked, absolutely gobsmacked, that I had as much of a good time with it as I ever have. It could be that I had one of the strongest laughs in my entire life in the scene where, what is his name, Tom Atkins, has already boned the main character at least once. It's suggested that it's probably twice, and the lead actress wants to get with him a third time, and he's like, whoa, wait, how old are you? Right in the bed that he's already slept with her in, and I'm like, that's a question that you say up front. That is a more upfront kind of question, not 2-3 sleeps in, if you're catching my drift. So I had to laugh out loud at that moment. But it was a solid watch, and I'd give it 2.5 stars, and one that I actually won't mind revisiting down the line. And I'm curious, when my daughter's old enough and able to appreciate the horror genre, she likes Halloween and stuff like that, and she seems to be veering down interest in the realm of horror and stuff like that. Be interested to see how she responds to this movie, because I do plan on showing her all the big franchises. Is she going to be wholly turned off because this is Michael Myers-less, or is that going to be something that kind of interests her and captivates her, as it did me? Or at least the idea did for me. But as I say, I've seen this movie 3 times now, and the first 2 times I was so wholly turned off by it that I had no interest in ever revisiting. And it really made me confront myself, because recently I rewatched the 2014 Godzilla, another movie I absolutely hated. And it really teaches me that lesson, that sometimes movies require more than one viewing to really find the appreciation for them. And that's something that was fun to self-examine. So anyway, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, do all that good stuff. Hope your middle of the year Spooky Noochies night was good for you. And let me know what you think of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch in the comments down below. Do you think we need an anthology franchise? I certainly do. Drop them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.